fantasy football season approaching the next couple of weeks and fantasy drafts. Most likely, most of your drafts are going to be this upcoming weekend and days after. Here's the top 20 tight ends I'm ranking going into the season. Number 1, Brock Bowers of the Vegas Raiders. Last season, what a year was in his rookie year for Brock Bowers. And he took the league by storm pretty quickly, over 100 receptions. Easily the number 1 target and best tight end in all pro football last season. And now with offensive upgrades, I think it could open things up just a little bit more as well for Bowers, where obviously they traded for Geno Smith in the offseason was the Vegas Raiders and drafted stud running back Ashton Jeanty in the NFL draft. So with those two factors added to the offense and Bowers getting obviously a little more help in the offense where it's not double teams or teams just game planning him, I think Brock Bowers, especially with the quarterback upgrades, is going to go out there once again, have a good season. And like I said, this Raider team, they're not going to be good and they're going to be trailing a lot of games. And Bowers should be able to get his numbers once again. Second tight end, Trey McBride of the Arizona Cardinals. Last couple of years, he's been great as Trey McBride, and he's a matchup problem in the middle of the field for all linebackers and safety. So McBride, he knows how to work the middle of the field. Him and Kyler Murray have had great rapport ever since McBride just came into the league, and he's been one of the better tight ends to come out of college football over the last decade, and obviously it's shown, especially the last 2 seasons in the NFL. So Trey McBride, he's going mid-second, third-round range, and if you want to get your tight end early, you'll have an advantage, obviously, with a Brock Bowers and a Trey McBride, where I think these two guys are in a class in their own, where the other tight ends obviously are solid, some of them, but they're not as good as these guys, and their ceiling isn't as high as a Bowers and Trey McBride. So entering the season where he's the number 1 option on the offense, it's pretty much him and Marvin Harrison in that receiving room over there for Arizona. I think McBride once again finishes within the top 2, 3. George Kittle of the San Francisco 49ers. A lot of injuries on this Niner team. Brandon Ayuk, he's out. Who knows to when after tearing the ACL last season. Juwan Jennings banged up. He wants a new contract. And pretty much Ricky Pearsall, the only guy in the receiving game with Kittle. So Kittle and Purdy, they've been on the same page for a while now. Kittle, he's a matchup problem. He's got wide receiver type of speed. And he's got the ability to hit a home run type of play where he could take a short little route and take it to the end zone for 60 yards. So once again, Kittle, the only thing with him has been health. But the target's going to be there with Deebo gone as well in Washington. And like you said, Ayuk not going to be ready. Jennings a question mark. And Ricky Pearsall only entering his second season. I know CMC's back, but how many receptions is he going to get out of the backfield? Kittle's target's going to be there. And especially in the red zone, he's a big-time threat. Number 4, TJ Hawkinson of the Minnesota Vikings. So Hawkinson and Laporta, it's pretty close, the 4 and 5 spot. But Hawkinson, I think, will have more of a role in this offense, especially with Jordan Addison suspended the first 3 games of the season. Even Justin Jefferson, he's banged up in training camp right now with a hamstring injury, even though I think he'll be fine and ready for week 1 is Jefferson. But Hawkinson, second year coming off the ACL now, he should be healthy and ready to go. And we know a young quarterback like J.J. McCarthy, and most quarterbacks rely on the tight end and the safety blanket in big situations is the tight end position. So Hawkinson, another tight end that can run all the routes, make the plays, got that game-breaking ability. And this season, like I said, if he's healthy and now the second year coming off the ACL, he really could break out is Hawkinson. Number 5, Sam Laporta of the Detroit Lions. So Laporta, last season, he got off to a very slow start. Then second half, he picked it up. But his rookie year obviously was a monster season. But Brock Bowers shattered all those records Laporta had in just one season after he came into the league. But Laporta, he's a matchup problem. He's a big tight end that could go out there, make big plays. But he's the 3rd, 4th option, arguably, on this offense that's loaded over there in Detroit with Gibbs and Montgomery in the backfield. St. Brown, Jameson Williams as the top 2 wide receivers, and Laporta. So like I said, a lot of mouths to feed over there in Detroit. But Laporta, he's a big-time playmaker, has a nose for the end zone. And this season, I think if he gets off to a good start, his numbers will be there. Because last season, even with a bad start, he finished in the top 6 at the tight end position. Number 6, Travis Kelce of the Kansas City Chiefs. A lot of people down on Kelce coming into the year. I know he's at 35. I know he's at the latter part of his career. Rashee Rice, he's back at least for the first 4 games. And then we'll see what happens with his hearing, if he's suspended or not. Xavier Worthy, you expect him to take the year 2 step. Hollywood Brown there as well, even though he's banged up. What else is new in training camp with this Chief team. But Travis Kelce, believe it or not, he still had 97 catches last season, and it was the first 4 or 5 weeks of the year where he wasn't playable and doing much. But I think Kelce this year gets off to a good start. This Chief team, I know they got to the Super Bowl, and their offense wasn't even that good, and they went all the way, even though they got blown out by the Philadelphia Eagles. So I think this season it was a reset, a little bit of a wake-up call, and Kelce's still a big target, still has great hands, can catch the football, and we just have to see his touchdowns go up because, like I said, he had 97 catches last year, over 800 yards. I know it wasn't a great year in some big games he had. In some games he didn't show up, but still, Kelce's 6th, 7th round range, I think, is decent value still for fantasy owners. Number 7, Mark Andrews of the Baltimore Ravens. Andrews, after having that bad leg injury a couple years ago last season, he got off to a slow start, and Isaiah Likely was making big plays. But as the year went on, he was putting up big numbers, and he had the big knack for the end zone. Was Mark Andrews, double digits in touchdowns last season. So he's the number 2 target in this offense in the passing game. I think Zay Flowers has overtaken the number 1 target for now for this Baltimore Raven team. They still got Rashad Bateman. They added the veteran DeAndre Hopkins in free agency. But we know this Raven team's a run-first team. Lamar, Derrick Henry, but Andrews, like I said, a big target in the red zone. And now 2 years off that leg injury. I think this year he could be consistent throughout the season. Number 8, Evan Ingram of the Denver Broncos. Evan Ingram, he signed as a free agent with this Denver Bronco team. Obviously, Jacksonville, it was a down year for him last season, injuries, and that whole offense, besides Brian Thomas Jr., was a mess over there. Now he signs on with Denver, where they don't really got much in the passing game besides Cortland Sutton, Devon Vele, young receiver, showed some flashes last year, Mims as well. But I think Ingram steps in right away as the number 2 option in the passing game for this Denver Bronco team. Like I said, Bo Nix had a good rookie year last year. Sutton was pretty much his only target, and now they add Evan Ingram to an offensive tight end that's hungry, still could go out there. And we know Sean Payton, he had great ways of getting tight ends to football, especially in his heyday, obviously, over there with the New Orleans Saints. We saw Jimmy Graham have some big seasons with Sean Payton at the helm, and I think Evan Ingram this season with his new team and a good coach who knows obviously how to get the tight end involved and make plays. Evan Ingram's a solid top 10 pick. Number 9, David Njoku of the Cleveland Browns. David Njoku, last season he had a great year with Cleveland. It looks like Joe Flacco's going to start at quarterback. And also in their receiving room, there's not much going on for this Brown team. We know they got Jerry Jeudy. He had his breakout season last year in his first year with the Browns. And also as well, Cedric Tillman's there, but he's been up and down throughout his career. And this Brown team, I expect them to be a bad team, trailing a lot. And Njoku, he's a freak athlete at the tight end position. He could run the routes. He's a problem even for corners if they got to cover him. And he's a big physical tight end that could break a lot of tackles and make plays. Number 10, Tucker Kraft of the Green Bay Packers. Tucker Kraft, it was close for me between him and Warren in this number 10 spot. But Tucker Kraft last season, he was their most consistent option in the passing game for the Green Bay Packers, where he would go out there, he'd get 4 or 5 catches at least per game. I know they got Matthew Golden in the NFL draft. Targets might be taken away, but let's remember Jordan Love, it's only his 3rd season now coming in as a starter, and a young quarterback, they still rely on the security blanket is the tight end position. And like I said, Tucker Kraft, he's got good ability, he's got good hands, and Jordan Love obviously trusted him a lot last season, where he was arguably the number 1 target in that passing game. I know Jaden Reed, he had some good games, but Tucker Kraft was more consistent at times. So this season, Tucker Kraft, if you want to wait on tight end, there's some good value in the back end of the tight end. As I'm going to go through this list, number 11, Tyler Warren of the Indianapolis Colts. Warren, he was the best tight end in college last season with Penn State. And it was surprising to people that he was the 2nd tight end off the board, off behind Colston Loveland in the NFL draft. So Indianapolis, they needed obviously a tight end. The position's been very weak for them for many seasons. Even going back to the Dallas Clark days, I think that's how long it's been that the tight end position hasn't done much over there for the Indianapolis Colts. But obviously they spend a high 1st round pick, 14th overall, to bring Warren in. And he's a good route runner. He can make the plays. He's a big target. And right away, he stepped into the number 1 role with the starters on the depth chart. And so far in a couple preseason games, he's gone out there and he's looked decent. So I've said this in other videos. If Daniel Jones is the starter, I think it's better off for Tyler Warren, because Anthony Richardson, when he's quarterback, no one gets the football really or has much fantasy value. So I think Warren, as long as Daniel Jones is the starter, Tyler Warren's a good value, someone you could take 9th, 11th round range, and he could be possibly a top 6-7 option this year. Number 12, the other rookie, Colston Loveland of the Chicago Bears. Loveland, 10th pick overall. Another great weapon added to this offense for the Chicago Bear team. And now with Ben Johnson, the head coach, and obviously a great offensive mind, where he was the coordinator for many seasons with the Lions, where they were one of the better offenses in the league. I think Colston Loveland could fit right into this offense. It's a young nucleus as well. Caleb Williams, the quarterback, entering his second season. Roma Dunze entering his second season. Got the veteran DJ Moore, obviously, at the other receiving position. And Colston Loveland, he jumped right up the depth chart as well over the veteran Cole Kmet in that offense. So like we saw with Sam Laporte, I think Ben Johnson could get Loveland in great spots to go out there and make plays. And he's got potential as well to be a top 7-10 tight end. But right now, going into the years 12-13, Dalton Kincaid of the Buffalo Bills, another tight end a few years ago the Bills took in the first round, 26, I believe, overall. And Kincaid last year, he got off to a good start. He got banged up a little bit and took a back seat. And we know this Bill offense, they like spreading the football out. Is Josh Allen. There's games where he hits 7 or 8 different people, have receptions in the game. So that's just what Josh Allen does, spreads it out. But Kincaid, like I said, he was a big-time prospect at the tight end position coming out. And you would figure with Josh Allen, he would get open pretty easy and make plays. But this season, I think he's under the radar a little bit. He is Dalton Kincaid. Like I said, he could run the routes. He's a big tight end who can make plays. And this season, you could wait very late in your draft and get him as well. 10th, 11th round range. 14, Jake Ferguson of the Dallas Cowboys. Ferguson coming off a nice contract extension with Dallas. We know Dak Prescott throughout his career has always targeted the tight end well. We saw with Jason Witten early in Dak's career still have big seasons after Romo retired. And we saw Ferguson a couple years break out once he had to step up and be the man over there in Dallas. And now, like I said, giving him a nice contract before training camp was Jake Ferguson. I know he's going to be the third option in the passing game. CeeDee Lamb, obviously one of the best receivers in the league. Added George Pickens in a deal with the Steelers. He's going to get his. But Ferguson's going to get a lot of open looks, especially in zone coverage. And like I said, teams, they're going to have to worry about Lamb and Pickens, where Ferguson could work the middle of the field. So he's another late-round tight end who I think could go out there, have some solid weeks. And I think he could get 50, 60 balls, 500-600 yards, and anywhere from 5 to 7 touchdowns. Decent projection for Ferguson. 15, Dallas Goedert of the Philadelphia Eagles. So Dallas Goedert, right now, he's the 4th or 5th option in this offense. And last year, we definitely saw him take a backseat. Obviously, with Saquon Barkley added in the offseason, rushing for 2,000 yards for Philly, where they were a run-heavy team with Hurts rushes, attempts, Saquon Barkley, and obviously behind A.J. Brown and Devonta Smith in the pecking order of making plays. I know Goddard, he had a few big games last season, but that was when A.J. Brown was out, and also Devonta Smith missed time. He had a few big games with Goddard, but for the most part, like I said, he's the 4th or 5th option, and his ceiling isn't high. He'll have a pop game here and there, I think, this season is Dallas Goedert, but for the most part, with all those weapons and a run-first mentality over there in Philadelphia, I think Dallas Goedert, he'll just be a decent tight end. I'll hover around 7 to 10 points weekly in PPR leagues at best. 16, Hunter Henry of the New England Patriots. Hunter Henry last season, he had some good ball games when Drake May came in to the starting lineup. And obviously May, from the get-go this season, is going to be the starting quarterback. They're not going to experiment with another veteran and have May come in. They added Stephon Diggs in the offseason to this offense. They drafted Williams, the rookie, at the receiver position, and at running back Trevion Henderson, who I think is an explosive player. So Hunter Henry, he's hovering around that 2nd or 3rd option in this passing game for this New England Patriot team. Henry, a veteran for many seasons, obviously, going way back even with the Chargers. He started his career with Phillip Rivers. So Henry could run the routes. He's got a knack for the end zone. And at least him and Drake May had good rapport last season. And I always say this as well, the young quarterback, obviously tight end security blanket type of deal. So I think Hunter Henry, a tight end, you could wait. If you totally punt the position and go into the year where Henry a tight end, I don't think it's the worst thing for fantasy owners. 17, Zach Ertz of the Washington Commanders. Zach Ertz last season, it was a great year with the Washington Commanders. Now I know he might take a little bit of a backseat, being the 3rd option on the offense after they traded for Deebo Samuel early in the offseason. But Zach Ertz, still one of the better route runners in all pro football. We know he's at the latter part of his career, in his mid-30s, late 30s now, is Zach Ertz. But last season, he had the knack for the end zone. And I said it a lot in this video, but a young quarterback's security blanket is a tight end position. That's exactly what Zach Ertz was last season for Jaden Daniels. So Terry McLaurin, he's been holding out, coming off the PUP list as well, entering the season. Still think Terry will be the number 1 option, Debo number 2, and Ertz will be the number 3 option in the offense. So right now in the latter part of your draft, Zach Ertz, he's going to be that 13th, 15th round range. And like I said, last season, he surprised a lot of people that he still had something left in the tank and was a decent fantasy option, especially in PPR leagues. 18, Jonnu Smith of the Pittsburgh Steelers. Jonnu Smith, he had a great second half of the year with the Dolphins, and he was a top 5 tight end easily the last month of the season. But now traded to Pittsburgh, I don't like the landing spot for Jonnu Smith. They got Pat Freiermuth over there, who I think still going to get decent looks at the tight end position. Aaron Rodgers, we know over the last few seasons, he don't like targeting the tight end position a lot with the New York Jets, especially. We saw that last season as well. Here with the new team in Pittsburgh, Jonnu Smith, he's had a lot of pit stops in his career. And obviously last year with Miami was his best year as a pro football player. But like I said, I don't see the upside really over here in Pittsburgh, unfortunately. They got DK Metcalf, the number 1 option. Number 2 receiver will either be Calvin Austin or Roman Wilson. And in the backfield, they got Jaylen Warren, who's one of the better receiving backs in the league, and the rookie Caleb Johnson. So like I said, with Aaron Rodgers, 40, 41 years old, I don't think they're going to want him to throw the football 35, 40 times a game. And with Jonnu Smith being the 3rd or 4th option in this offense, I don't think it really bodes well for him this season. Number 19, Darren Waller of the Miami Dolphins. So Waller, he was brought out of retirement from this Dolphin team. They traded the mentioned Jonnu Smith away to Pittsburgh, and then quickly after that made a deal with the Giants to get Darren Waller. So Waller, he hasn't practiced yet in training camp, but he should be ready for week 1. And Waller, 32 years old, still a big target, 6'6", 245. I know last season he didn't play, in 2023 wasn't a good season for Waller with the New York Giants, but he adds an element to this Miami Dolphin team where they had some trouble in the red zone over the last couple seasons. I know he'll be the 3rd or 4th option. Devon Achane in the backfield, Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle obviously on this offense, but Waller, I still think he has something left and he could be a big target, and they don't need a lot of big plays out of him. So I think he could be kind of like a touchdown specialist possibly for this Miami Dolphin team. And obviously 3-4 years ago, he was one of the better tight ends in fantasy football. So if you want to take a late round flyer, have him come off the bench, or if you're even confident going into the year with him as a starter, you could wait to the last round to draft down Waller. And the 20th and final tight end I'm ranking is Isaiah Likely of the Baltimore Ravens. Last season, he got off to a monster start with this Raven team, 2 touchdowns in the opener, and just missed a third in the back of the end zone at the Kansas City Chiefs. But now he's dealing with a broken bone in his foot, and obviously he's out pretty much all the training camp, and even in the early weeks of the season he might be out. And obviously the number 2 tight end on the roster behind Mark Andrews is Isaiah Likely. But Likely, like I said, he's got big playability. We've seen it the last couple seasons, and if you want to take him in the last round, you couldn't stash him on your IR as Isaiah Likely if he's not ready for week 1 of the season, which it's not looking good. But like I said, behind Andrews and other options I mentioned in this video are going to be starters for their team. The upside as of now with the injury and that isn't high for Isaiah Likely. But like I said, deeper leagues, last round flyer, it's worth the shot maybe for fantasy owners. So that's the top 20 tight ends I'm ranking entering the 2025 fantasy football season.